Today's guest is someone whose strength and resilience truly inspires us. Maria Aleandra has been navigating the complex and emotional journey of being a full-time caretaker, not only to her child, but also to her husband. Her story is one of love, sacrifice, and incredible perseverance. Today, she's opening up about the challenges, the lessons, and the moments of grace that come with holding her family together during the hardest of times. We read the books, we bought the things. We thought we were ready. And then life took our plans and changed them. I'm Karen, I'm Victoria's mommy, and I work in tech.
And I'm Pamela. I have a baby boy named Ford, and I'm a journalist. And although we're both first-time working moms, we're actually pretty different.
And that's totally okay. Because we both agree that our most important work is raising our kids. We really need each other and can only get through this together. Welcome to Motherish Moments. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. I'm a little bit not 100% today, so I'm going to really hold myself through for this episode. But anyway, I'm excited for our guest because I've known her for quite some time. We worked together back in the day at Telemundo, and I'm super excited to continue to be connected with her, and to have her here is like very, very exciting for me.
We love when we have friends over.
Yes.
So I'm excited to get to know her and her story.
Yes.
Why don't we start with our Motherish moment of the week?
I'm ready with mine. So on Sunday of this past week, I took Victoria to work with me. I had to work a baseball game, and I took her to work with me for the first time, like that I actually had to like keep her with me the whole time for work. It was particularly challenging. I definitely upset security a few times. I definitely broke some rules, but I had to do what I had to do, you know. But it was so funny because after that we got home, and in a very rare occurrence, I do not nap. I cannot nap. Like I've tried to nap, and I'm like, oh, and I don't. I'm a terrible. Yeah, no, you could nap right now.
Right now, right? Me too.
I can't nap for the life of me, and so I was on the couch. And, you know, it'd been a long day. I also kind of had like a long night. I had gone out the night before, whatever. And I guess I fell asleep, and my family was there, my brother, his wife, whatever. Everybody's talking, and Victoria apparently goes, everybody, shh. Mama worked so hard today.
Aww.
And we have to let her rest. And my mom told me that, and not gonna lie, I was kind of proud. Like I was happy because I'm like, good, because now she knows like what I'm doing. Because for her, it's always a big deal about like, why do you have to work? Oh, whatever. And I'm like, you need to see this. Like this is what your mama does, and it's important. And so my mom, I guess she asked Victoria like, and was your mom's work like important? And she goes, very important. Aww. And I was like, oh yes, it was so cute. So Mom win, good.
So cute.
Yeah.
So my Motherish moment this week is first time my mom, I guess, officially like lost Ford at Target.
Ooh.
Very scary. So I come home. My mom is crying in one corner, like really worked up. You could tell she was really scared and like shaking up by the whole experience. Ford is like upset in the other corner, right? So I'm just like, no sabes lo que me pasó. You don't know what happened to me. So I'm like, okay, well, obviously they're both here, so they're both okay.
Yeah. I was like, wait, is Ford there?
Yes. So he's there. I'm like, okay. He's like, what happened? She goes, it was like 10 minutes and I couldn't find him. And like, I've been through that. I've been through that with my younger sister. Remember, she was 4. We were at Sears, and I thought it was like, it felt like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, calm down. He's okay, you know. He's like, I know he does. He went running. He looking for this toy and this dinosaur that he wanted. And then I couldn't find him. And it was so big. And I kept running. And then Ford was upset that when he went back to her spot, she was gone.
Oh.
So it was like a big misunderstanding. So I'm like, okay, let me teach both of them lessons. So I go, Mom, the first thing you need to do, because I work in news, is you need to ask them to lock the doors. Go to the manager and be like, my son's missing. My grandson's missing. You can't do it on your own. Obviously, you guys are going in circles. Go to the manager, tell him to please close the doors, or like, you know,
wow, is that a real thing?
Yeah, because then they can't get out of the store.
Right, but they'll do that.
What you don't want is your child to leave the store.
Of course.
With whoever.
Yeah. No,
that
no,
may be.
No. I'm a
right?
victim of like,
I mean, I'm here thinking
Jimmy
of
Rice
like
headlines.
yes, like being kidnapped, like traffic, you know. Again, maybe I'm being extremist.
No.
There's
You know that I'm super aligned with you in
there's
these
no
things.
downside to that. I'm like, okay, you ask them to close the door. There's a child missing, blah, blah. Okay. And then Ford, like, you cannot leave your mom, your grandma. Okay, so I go sit down and I put this reel of like attempted child abductions at whatever. So he's watching this reel. And
Why do you have to say it?
So I'm because I wanted
So
to
I
be
proceeded
scared.
to traumatize my
Literally, I
child.
had a moment where he's like, he has no sense of fear when it comes to that. He could walk away. He's like, by himself, like no sense of like awareness. So he's watching the whole thing. I'm like, okay, you see how scary that was? You know, I'm getting scared watching this, right?
Yes.
It's like very well narrated. It was like, you know, and in this scene, this 2-year-old was snatched from the, you know,
You
shopping
showed him
cart.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I'm like, okay, so what do you do next time? He's like, okay, I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm a little boy, and I'm gonna be like, get over here, man, get over here. And I'm like, no, you're not doing that. I mean, you're not fighting the bad guy. You're not doing that. Like, it had the opposite effect
Yeah.
on my child.
I mean, a few weeks ago on Motherish, you said that you were contemplating a
faking,
fake kidnapping to teach him this. So
They
looks like
taught
you don't
me-
have to do that anymore.
So we're not doing that anymore. But you know what? In all fairness, it actually reminded me the big responsibility that we hand onto other people when it comes to our children. I could tell my mom was terrified and horrified at the idea of losing, obviously,
Of course.
my child, but also the sense of like responsibility she has on her shoulder
Yeah.
is a lot. So I just wanted to like
Acknowledge.
thank her, acknowledge that, and be grateful to her and be thankful to her. And it's scary. I mean, it scares me when it's, you know, and it's my child. Imagine like someone else's child.
Yeah.
But he's fine. Everyone's fine.
So Maria, why don't you share, Maria
Yes.
Aleandra, look at me. I'm sorry. Why don't you share with us your motherish moments?
Oh, absolutely. So a few of them, but last night was definitely one that stood out. So I was just sitting and watching stuff, and the Benson Boone Mystical Magical song comes on my phone. And my son, Skylar, he's 8, runs over to me next to me, and he goes, Mommy, do you know that that is my current absolute favorite song in the entire world?
It's so cute.
So cute.
And I was like, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. It's a great song. He's like, okay, we gotta sing karaoke right now. And so I put it on the phone and we sang, and he sang with me, and he's very much about like doing his own thing. So at first I couldn't sing along.
Right, of
Because
course.
he's like, no.
No.
And then he goes, next, you can pick a song after, and then you can sing that one. And then he's picking for me, and you know, the whole back and forth. And then after that, he had this really beautiful, tender moment where he looks at me because they finished school yesterday, right? So he's like, wow, I can't believe I'm already done with the second grade. He goes, I wish I had like 2 more days to really like to feel it, to like be there. I'm really happy it's summer, but you know, I have this feeling, and I'm also so grateful because I had 2 of the best teachers in the world this year. And I was like, geez. Yeah, because he had a teacher the first semester who had to retire early, and so they brought in a new teacher. And he had this experience of having a veteran, amazing, like top of the line teacher the first semester. And then the second, a brand new teacher. And so this contrast of both of them in the same year. And the fact that he was reflecting on that, and he does this all the time, and I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. And then I tucked him in, and I kissed him, and I whispered in his ear, like, I'm so proud of you for finishing the second grade. So great. Can you, like, you're done. That's amazing. And I said, thank you for being so wonderful. And then he said something about, like, being proud that I was still a mom, something like that. He's like, he kisses me. He goes, well, I'm proud that you're still a mom. And I'm like,
Boys are so cute.
thank you. Yeah.
I'm doing this thing where since he was little, I always felt for him like, you're so smart, you're so handsome, you're so sweet, you're so kind, you're so whatever. So last time I'm doing the whole thing, I'm like, oh, you're so handsome, and you're so sweet, and you're so kind, and you're so smart. And he goes, yeah.
God,
He goes, yeah. And it's funny because he mimics like his dad is always, every time I'm engaged with Ford, he's always like, oh my God, you're obsessed. He goes, yeah, I know. You're obsessed with me. I know.
I love it.
It was so cute.
I love it. Here, let me jump into this. So, Maria Aleandra Fernandez is a content creator, curious mystic, wife, mom, and ALS caregiver. Having faced the life-altering diagnosis of her husband's ALS in May of 2020, she uses her platform to inspire others to maintain their inner spark no matter the challenges they may face. We're so happy that you're here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about just what you want to share about your life and who you are, so that our community can get to know you a little bit as we dive into this conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Absolute highlight. of the day. It's so nice when I can go out and have conversations with cool mamas. So thank you. And so my husband Jules was diagnosed with ALS, which is currently a terminal illness. The average lifespan is 2 to 5 years. Some people live less, some people live more. My husband's right about the average of that in terms of progression. Mm-hmm. He was 34 at the time. I was about to turn 40, and our son was 3. So, and it happened right at the beginning of lockdown, literally the first day that the schools closed here for us was the day that we went to the first neurologist that said this could be ALS. Mm-hmm. A couple months later, he got the official diagnosis in May. So it was both a really trying time because of everything else going on, but also a really priceless kind of cocoon for our family to really figure out how we were going to attempt to navigate this world. So ALS is a disease that affects the motor neurons in your brain, and so basically they lose connection with anything in your body that moves. Mm-hmm. In my husband's case, he started losing the ability to use his arms pretty quickly, so losing dexterity in his hands and then eventually his arms. He started using a walker, and then you end up in a wheelchair. It compromises your lungs. So my husband right now, he was vented before, now he has a tracheostomy. You can't really chew, swallow, so he has a PEG tube. He can't speak. It sounds incredibly dire, because it is. Yeah. And I also, as I say that, I think about how vibrant my husband is. It's very odd to
because a lot of it is physical because your brain remains
intact, and mentally
right?
with ALS you are 100% there, right. There's absolutely no nothing affects your cognition at all. There's some rare instances that it actually does combine with cognitive decline, but
usually it's mainly
mainly physical. So as my
what
husband,
causes ALS?
There's nothing known yet. I mean, it's a disease that has a long way to go in terms of research. And it's not genetic. 10% of cases are genetic, and 90% are what they call sporadic. And my husband's in the sporadic category.
You had never heard of this disease before you got the diagnosis?
I had. You hear about Lou Gehrig's disease, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the scientist. Help me out here. Stephen Hawking, who lived a very long life with ALS, but they suspect he actually had a different variation of it. Okay. So those were the cases that you kind of know about. And as my husband started presenting sort of the telltale symptoms at the beginning, there's some muscle twitching, spasms, certain things like that when you then begin to combine them together.
But for the most part, he was a healthy...
incredibly healthy. Okay. Super sporty guy,
I mean, I was there the night they met.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was there the night they met, and those two were a perfect immediate. It was an immediate thing where I remember being like, oh, this is a real deal. Yeah. I to this day, I have not seen many instances of couples, of people that meet and have this spark immediately. Yeah. And you guys dove into this beautiful connection, and it was bless you. Sorry. And it was what for me 100% destiny meant to be. That is the version of them that I met. Then I had them several months, I think, or a year maybe into their relationship. I did a party at an old apartment that I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and they were the karaoke bosses of life, really energetic, normal, Yeah.
So at this point, your son's 3 years old. You get this diagnosis, and what's the first thing that, crosses your mind?
Oh my gosh! I mean, right away when you're told ALS is in the picture, it's already you're already considering that you're in a grieving what will eventually be the death of your person, because there's really, besides holding hope, absolutely we hold it all the time, but the reality is that this disease just takes you very quickly. And so at first, I think for me, I went into sort of project mode, which is kind of my go-to. I think you may know a little bit of what that's like.
I know this side of her too.
I know this. Yeah, so I immediately wanted to be very present with the situation, and tending to my emotional space and really seeing it as, here we are. And I remember that first day when we heard from this neurologist, we got out of the hospital in the car, like crying, holding hands. And I said, Jules was like, what about you? What about Skylar? And I said, babe, if I know anything that I feel right now is that both him and I and you came prepared for this. Like, our souls are ready. And even though I had no idea what was coming, I remember having this like very profound, like, inner knowing of, if this is happening, it's because I came prepared for this.
Yeah.
And so even in the times when I will have no idea what to do and how hard it's going to get, I'm like, I'll have what it takes. And not even from a like, get up from your bootstraps, just from a very like deep soul, like, and for Skylar as well. And so that gave me a lot of peace in that spiritual mindset, emotional realm. And then I got into like project mode. Like, I made a binder, I made an Excel spreadsheet,
There's so much learning also.
There's
like
so
if you're-
much
you have-
learning. You were immediately thrust into like, ALS clinic world, which is you go see all these different specialists that are all going to ask a million questions. And you begin to very quickly see the decline of the person that, I love the most, of my best friend, of seeing his body change, feeling the difference in his body, saying goodbye to so many things, like one by one by one by one, so many like last times for anything that you can imagine that's like mundane.
Yeah.
And so it's this constant like spiral of grief, and then finding the sparks along the way where you keep going, we keep loving. We are, we really made it a point to continue to foster really strong communication, like really like work at that and be very open with each other. And that absolutely trickled to how we dealt with things with Skylar.
Yeah.
So I can say that with a lot of confidence, that Jules, Skylar, and I are happier than most people I encounter in life, which is very strange, but there's sort of this love and this peace in the middle of all the tears and the sorrow and the grief and the trauma and the exhaustion that kind of permeates everything. And so,
how did you find the time and the purpose, I guess, to share your journey, right? Through your Instagram, through the podcast.
Yeah.
Why was it important for you to share this?
I went through phases with it. At first, my husband and I had a podcast called The Couple Shift, which we had started in November of 2019, the prior year, because I had been let go of my job, and he ended up quitting his school job. He was a teacher at sixth grade teacher. And so I was starting my own business, and we were sort of embarking in this world of let's do things differently and what that could look like. And which was an irony, because we were literally like opening up our world, and then all of a sudden it got like really shut down.
Yeah.
And when I look back and weave all those little decisions together, we made the best decisions without knowing what was coming, because I set myself up to basically be able to work at home, which I still do a little bit, but I'm mostly, caregiver is my main role. So from the beginning, Jules said, I want to keep sharing our story. And I was like, absolutely. So we talked about it on the podcast from the beginning, every stage, every change, everything that was happening with parenting, with our relationship, just being very open. And we kept on doing that, the podcast. Sometimes we'd go on hiatus when things were a little harder, but then we'd inevitably come back to it. And then in terms of sharing, I shared a little bit on my Instagram at the beginning. And then something happened in March of 2022. My Instagram was hacked. And so it disappeared. And all of these pieces were just like set in motion by the universe to just really shake me out of any of the boxes that I was in before, because the life-changing nature of these types of events, which are not unique to a diagnosis, it could be anything you guys have lived too, is you're kind of like squeezed out into this new terrain. And unless you really can like unplug or are unplugged, like I often joke that the universe just like spit me out of wherever I was, and in this whole new space where I was like, I'm exploring new territory. So I shared a little bit, then my account got hacked, and then I had like 2022 was a period of a lot of deep healing. We did a lot of like plant-based medicine rituals that year together, which were so beautiful. And so it was like a very intimate space of grieving and everything. After that year, I remember early 2023 beginning to get like, feel like I could sort of hold the energy of talking about it, of, because when you're living it, it's like sometimes the last thing you want to do is keep talking about it, or you're just sustaining your own little world. And so then I felt a sense of strength, and it gave me purpose, and it felt very healing. It feels incredibly healing. Many times you're like, I'm sharing things, not now because I've seen enough feedback to understand how beautiful and important it is, but before it was like, the classics, like, who cares? Yeah, we don't want to be a sob story. But there was always a nudge from both of us, Jules as well, and to share and to be real about the duality of all of the pain we were living and also all of the joy we were cultivating. And so around the summer of 23, and then I did a few events also. We did like fundraisers, and we had a beer come out that was a fundraising thing too. We had a comedy show around that summer. I did some advocating in DC with senators and Congress. And then after that, I was like, all right. And so I had a friend actually help me start the Instagram account, because I was like, I can't even just do it. And she gave it the momentum, and then I took it on, and now it's a really thriving, amazing space.
So when I saw you a few days ago, we talked about a few things, but one of the things that really kind of stuck with me was when you're navigating difficult conversations with your children, right? And so although obviously we all have different walks of life, different experiences, different situations, but there is that common thread of like, sometimes, things happen in your life and you have to have these hard conversations with your children. They ask you questions that sometimes as a parent or as a mother, like, you don't want to answer because you know that it's going to hurt them, but you have to tell them the truth. And you have to find the ways to tell them the truth in the doses that are appropriate for them. And so we were kind of connecting over that, because I said, in the last year, Victoria has asked me very difficult conversations, and I can't lie to her, because if I lie to her, it's much more detrimental.
Yeah, of course.
And I think in your case, talk to us a little bit about your son and Skylar, and how you navigate this space with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jules and I, again, from the beginning, one of the things we aligned with was that we would be open with Skylar in terms of whatever he would ask. He was 3 at the time, so there wasn't a conversation I have other friends that are caregivers and ALS patients that have slightly older kids, that there's like a conversation that happens to set the tone for what's coming. In our case, it was kind of gradual, like quick but gradual. Skylar just started to see how things were changing with his dad. And, at first asked questions about, mobility and ability to do this or that, and playing, one of the hardest things is to, for Jules and I to have all these ideas of how a dad is going to play, catch and fish and all these things that Jules loves to do, to be able to do them with Skylar, and how, we had to modify things. And so conversations absolutely started happening. And from very, very young, again, he's always shown this wisdom beyond his like understanding that allowed me to be even more open with him, and more, and really trust the fact that these kids were all similar. They're all similar ages. I think yours is the youngest, right?
He just turned 5.
He just turned 5. So 5, 6, and 8. They came equipped into this lifetime with a whole magnificent set of skills that I wish we could have had when we were like, they have the sense of knowing who they are, the sense of confidence, the sense of sort of like, he's always been very grounded in everything. And so it opened the door for us to have conversations around death pretty quickly. What was happening to his body, the lack of medicines to cover ALS, which for a kid seems like, how is this even possible? Like we walked into CVS one day, this was like 3 years ago, and he's like, Mommy, look at all these medicines. You're telling me a doctor can't come up with a medicine to cure Bubby when all of this exists. And I'm like, or we'd go to the clinic and, say goodbye. And he'd say, okay, tell the doctors to tell the scientists to please like work on this,
Figure it out. Yeah.
figure it out. And then at the same time, he would ask me things like, you know, once we were in our, Jules and I have a shared office, and he has his computer and desk there. And he said, you know, Mommy, when Papi's no longer here, when he dies, would I get his computer? And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. If that's something that you want, we can make it yours and everything. One time last year, we had a few scares in terms of breathing, and you know, we thought there were like one instance for sure in October before he got the tracheostomy that I thought we had a night when it was like, this is it, because he was opting out of doing that procedure, which is the only thing that would have extended his life. And then, you know, things changed. But the time that we went to the hospital before that, which, you know, always involves firefighters coming into the house and rescue and the whole thing. And Skylar was sitting there, and he looked at me, and I go, he was going to stay. His grandparents had already come to get him. And I went to give him a kiss, and he said, he's like, Mommy, so anything could happen, right? Could Papi die this time that he goes to the hospital? And I go, yeah, that's entirely possible. And, you know, it's like, and at the same time, his understanding of death, and then I think about all of us, our understanding of death is so, it's like this void that we don't even know that's going to be, what that's going to feel like. Like I don't, even as I prepare myself in sort of that anticipatory grief, I don't know how I'm going to react when Jules is no longer here. I have a sense that I'll be fairly strong because I feel so good about how we've lived through this.
Yeah.
But the same, I mean, with Skylar, I can imagine that, you know, obviously he'll have his own experience. And that's the other thing, that I'm a firm believer that each one of us has our own like life track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so my husband is living his experience, I'm living mine, Skylar's living his, and then Jules and I are living a relationship. The three of us have our pod, which we're living our story, and then I'm living my story with Skylar and Jules with Skylar. And I'm always been very conscious also of like knowing that everybody has their own like energy and their own way to just move through this. And so not getting so intermingled or having expectations about how anybody's supposed to react or how my son is supposed to react or anything. But yeah, it's been illuminating. It's been beautiful. It's brought him and I close together. We both have like this sort of soul like whisper of, we know we're going to have this lifetime to figure things out together. And it's strange to talk about it because then, you know, we don't want to go into the future like that. It's like, we're here and my husband's here and he's as much a part of our, you know, he's as connected to us as ever. But there's definitely this like, all right, you and me, we're gonna be a team and have to figure out a whole bunch of years together.
Yeah. If I recall correctly, even having your son was a challenge because you shared that you had endometriosis. And we talked at that point because my mom also had endometriosis. And so it's like, it's wild to see everything that came after. Like, we talked about, did I talk about this with you? No, I talked about this with someone recently where I'm like, when you have a child, I feel like they choose you.
Yes.
And so it's like, Skylar chose
you talked about that.
Yeah, like he chose you, and at one point you maybe didn't even think you were going to have a child, but like, but that was meant for you, and he's your, you know, your partner.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. The same thing. I think our kids absolutely choose us, and we're the vessel for them to come through into this world, and guide them as best as we can. But yeah, there's this very deep felt sense that, and he's told me as well, and it's that interesting balance too of not wanting to ever overburden our children because it's that fine line of having trusting and open conversations without them feeling like they have to take care of us because and as we all have the one, and so they are already predisposed.
I know.
To see.
I actually don't like it when it's like, "I'll protect you, Mom. I'll protect you."
Yeah.
You don't have to protect me, baby. I'm okay. It's okay. I don't know where he got it, but he's very persistent. Like, I'll protect you. I got you. Like, and you're right. I think these children
I don't know if it's an only
have
child
this like.
I don't know. Skylar is the same, and once he told me that he was born to be like my knight and my protector, and that he was born to keep like guard over me. And I, at first I not panicked, but I was like, I don't want him to grow up thinking that he has to take care of me. So same thing. I was like, and also in the same breath, I don't want to truncate or limit that spirit,
that loving spirit.
because that's part of his reaction and expression of what's happening. And so if I don't also allow the space for him to, I'm getting chills, to really do like care for me and worry about me in the way that it's naturally happening, I feel like I can cut something off.
Right.
And so again, super fine balance and
it's
lots
a line
of missteps.
Responsibility, I think, where they don't feel that it's their responsibility, but they do feel the space to do that. Right? Because I think I still, or recently, currently, in the last few years of my life, have started to analyze, why I am the way that I am and different things that have come out. And I think so much of it goes back to during my childhood experiencing certain levels of chaos or problems that I put myself into this role of don't be a person that creates issues, don't speak up about problems, because there's already too much chaos in this home that you can't, what you need to do is take care of your parents and make their lives easy. And so I ended up taking that way too far in my life and had lots of consequences thereafter. And so, now in this situation that Victoria is in with living in two homes with her parents separated, I worry about this all the time because she will say things like, sometimes she'll say, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine, and that they're not. And so I don't want her to fall into that without also kind of like imposing my own traumas on her. But I'm like, I want to make sure to have the mental clarity to identify and say, I think here she's trying to pretend that she's okay.
Right, for my sake.
For my sake. And so it's so important to kind of like go back into that role of almost like being their receptacle and being like, hey, like, you can dump all your stuff here. It's okay.
Yes.
And in order to do that, you have to also show that, right?
Yep.
You have to show like when you're not feeling okay, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling this, so that they can be like, oh, it's okay to have those feelings.
Yeah.
I also think we're living in this era where, people are really pushing this message of like, you got to be present, you got to be grateful, you got to be, live in the moment. And I know it's easier said than done when you choose to be grateful and be in the moment. But I think in your case, what have you learned about being present and being grateful?
Oh, I mean, I definitely learned things that go beyond all those sort of cliche things because it's, there's being present in the moment, and then there's feeling like, again, you're putting sort of so many pregnant expectations on the moment. Like every moment has to be incredible, especially when you have a ticking clock of not only life, but abilities of things that my husband can do and what we can do together. It definitely, for me, the idea of understanding every time that I found myself at like a block of fear, of grief, of all of those feelings, and sort of allowing myself to kind of dissolve those moments. And yesterday I was actually on my podcast talking about this really clear moment for me when early on in his diagnosis we were laying in bed and his left hand started to lose, and his left arm, a lot of like muscle mass already. So I could tell the difference. I mean, I would look at his back and see, and it was, all these things that you're like, oh my God, something's going on. And at this point we already knew what it was, and I was holding his hand and it felt scary because his hand was thinner, he couldn't move it the same way. And I remember just going, no, Maria Aleandra, you're going to hold his hand and you're going to feel it and you're going to squeeze it and you're going to touch it and you're going to be here with this. And it was a very physical touch thing, but also really created a lot of the information inside of how I would like how I want to be present for this. Not to check any boxes or to prove anything, but just because if not, I was just going to miss the whole thing. And just like that, I've had so many moments. I've learned life is so precious. Life has also this like pulse that's all its own and will like find its way through the darkest things. The will that we have inside of us, and when the true meaning of love and commitment, and how when all of the external things that we're often so worried about and preoccupied about kind of fade away and fall away, you're like, okay, like, you know, if this that's happening between us isn't like love, then what is love?
Right.
Because so many times I look at my situation and it's like, oh, you wish it were different. You know, I hear about a family going for the summer up to, for a weekend up to Disney. And I'm like, it breaks me because I can't, it would be very difficult. It would require a lot. It would be very energy consuming. So we have had to make so many concessions. And then I'm like, oh, I get into these moments, of course, when I'm in like deep sorrow around what this looks like, what I would have liked it to look like. We used to go to the zoo as a family all the time. And now I go to the zoo and every corner I'm like, deep breaths, because it's like you're grieving the loss of the person already because he's not physically there. But then I get to go home and kiss him and, live up on him. And then I'm wondering, what about when that's not the case and he's not laying there, in bed, and what will my life look like? But that idea of being really there for it is priceless, because if not, I think we waste so much energy in sort of the other stuff.
Yeah. Last year, I went through my separation and everything, and it was one of the recurring themes that kept coming up for me that I ended up writing about was the concept of grief, right? And the way I experienced it, at least, was that grief, I always had grief in a category of like, this is what you feel when someone dies, period. And I don't think that's the case now. I have an expanded view on grief and how you can grieve a lot of things. And I think especially like in all the conversations we've had with women who are trying to conceive and haven't been able to, or, for me, the concept was grief of the life the way you imagined it was going to be. And how when you're processing that, it comes in waves, because you'll have moments where you feel it out of nowhere and it kind of takes over. And then like a wave, it kind of passes, and then you're able to have like moments to reflect if you are present, and if you're really working on yourself, to reflect on it, to say, okay, why did I feel this way? What is it really that is making me feel this way?
Which is very isolating, because I think I had shared this too before, like those different type of griefs. I think people also are very easy to be like, oh, but you should be grateful for this and that. But you're fine.
No.
And then you're like, but you don't understand. Like, and I feel like a lot of the times we go through those griefs, moments of griefs, very alone, because there's a sense of like, even embarrassment to be like, I'm sad,
like,
because
even was like,
and I feel that there's not a lot of empathy where like,
no. I'm
was like,
with
hey,
my own feelings. I was like, oh, well, Karen, you have this is in my own internal narrative, who's like very mean, like my internal voice, like I've been working on like, putting her in place. But it was I'm so hard on myself. I'm like, why were you grieving? Your life is this. Your life, like what you're saying, the external people, I am that to myself. And I've had to soften that a lot and just allow the space for all kinds of grief, and in many, many areas of your life in many different ways. Question for you about you. How you take care of yourself. How have you try to protect your magic?
How are you?
How
are you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, and it's a great segue, because I wanted to add to this whole grief or whatever feeling it is, one of the biggest things that I've learned from the beginning is also that really you are your own whole entity. Nobody else will take care of you the way you can take care of yourself. We cannot live our lives based on other people's expectations, input, information. That's a surefire way to just completely lock yourself away from who you are. And that sort of kind of separation of really seeing myself as the center of my own story and my universe. Like, I really firmly am like, you're the center of your universe, and there's all these things orbiting around you, and I am my first priority. I've worked on it. I've, because then everything else really does function when I have that mindset. And so, gosh, I mean, I've screamed into the void. I've cried. I've talking to other women and men, especially around our age, that are going through this. I have a wonderful support group on WhatsApp that's like, a saving grace for all of us. A lot of the grief that I experienced, because the thing too is when you're going through this, and you guys may relate because of the relationships you had, or you have that have since changed, is that you're going through something so painful, and that might be the person that you want to grieve it with. Like, you feel like, because they're such a part of your life, right? So I was like, the one person that I really want to like cry with is Jules. It's almost like we were both grieving this thing that he was having. But, we also had to care for each other in the way that we weren't going to overburden each other and sort of find that balance. I've learned life when you're a caregiver is incredibly fragmented. So my energy, my brain, my everything is just like living in pockets of time. Some periods of time have been way more intense than others. And other times we find ourselves in a bit of a better flow, and inevitably things will change again. So being flexible with shifting things, holding all of the sadness and all of the joy, and sort of finding myself in all of that, having the courage to live this the way that I want to live it, because people will look externally, and this would happen to me at the beginning, where people would like, but how are you doing? Are you okay? And I'd be like, well, I mean, I cry and I laugh, but there's sort of like, people have this thing where they want to, I don't know, pick up all the stray animals, and the people I found wanted to like boost themselves by being a part of the narrative. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
And so at first I was like, wow, I'm doing a lot of hand holding for other people's experience.
Right.
Of
your situation.
Of my situation. And so very quickly I was like,
nope,
that's not going to happen, because I'm not going to hold the bucket for your tears. You need to process this. And I was like, everybody's a grown-up here, and if anybody needs help in figuring this out, you go get it. I'm talking about family, friends, etc. It took a while for families to really get into more of an acceptance mode, where Jules and I were already in a different wavelength. We lost a lot of friends along the way. People just kind of disappear from your life. And then other incredible people that come back into your life from years ago, or in odd ways that you're like, wow. And then who's who and what's what. Yeah. And so to filter all of those things has made me incredibly strong. Like, I used to think, I've always been very strong and had this unstoppable. That was always kind of like a surface thing. If I do this, then I'm going to be happy. And if I achieve this, and all those classic things. And now I'm like, wow, it's just so different, because it feels so real.
She has you have the fearless tattoo, right? In your in your arm.
I do, yeah. I do. Yeah. And so I really feel that. I'm like, I'm effing unstoppable. Yeah. Like, there is nothing short of something happening to Skylar. Right. That's it. Yeah. That's it. Anything else, you name it, I will. So that emboldens me in a way that is like, whoa. And a lot of it is incredibly messy and incredibly imperfect. And I feel a lot of guilt a lot
What's the
of
main
times.
difference between being a caregiver to your child and then becoming the caregiver to
Oh yeah,
your
it's
partner?
such a good question. And at first that was challenging to balance with Skylar because he was 3, right? And still he's 8. He's a young
Yeah.
kid, so he's grown up with this notion that I devote a lot of energy and care to Jules because, and I know he resents that. I know, he has, and he
Yeah.
still does, and he understands it better. He can rationalize it. But I've had to also play like this very fine balancing act. And at the beginning, it was very little left of me because I was pouring a lot into caregiving and feeling completely depleted in every, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all the things. And then I have a child that
Yeah.
I wanted to not only care for him properly in the basics of him feeling safe, but I want to pour myself onto him. Like I love being his mom, and anything that sort of took away from that felt really, really difficult to reconcile. And I did feel like resentment and anger towards Jules and the situation, and because of the demanding nature of this thing. Like you go all of a sudden from normal life to cutting your husband's food and feeding him, and that just keeps going. And so it's been, again, a very like a balance, and a lot of communication, which is also interesting because ALS, one of the big markers is that people fairly quickly lose the ability to communicate. And so you're now adapting all the time to new forms of communicating, whether he's, right now he types with his eyes, so he speaks through a computer.
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
He
So
drives his
wild.
wheelchair with a computer. It's incredible. He, I read his lips a lot, but even that's getting a little bit harder because, again, you're losing the dexterity. So some of the words don't quite look the same. So that's something else that changes. So and then Jules and Skylar have had to adapt, and I've seen them both be the most normal, like bickering at each other, the two of them. And I've also learned how to let them have their own experience because so much of it too, and I've talked to this to Jules so many times, dads have a different way of a different way.
Everything.
Yeah.
And so he focuses and uses a lot of his energy on like discipline and telling him to, go take a shower, go to bed. And he's doing it to help me, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, babe, like there are other ways, but that's his love. Like that's the role that he like. So that's been such a challenge because I'm like, don't waste your time. Like, why are you worried about something so stupid?
Yeah.
But it's his, but it's
could
in
also
his world and
normal, like for him to feel a version of normalcy.
Yes.
What dads do, they tell them to go shower.
Yes.
It's like,
So I've had to have a lot of those talks with myself too. A lot of self-talking and a lot of like, self-reflecting and having that sense of responsibility for tending to yourself so that you're also not like dumping.
basically, how do you find the strength? By just
How do I find the strength? I mean, I love my husband and I'm very committed to him. And I also have never seen that I have to do this in terms of, we're married, so we have a, contract and I have to do this because that's what I have to do. I've always known it's a choice.
Yeah.
Would I have ever really, truly considered not seeing this through with him? I don't think so. But I had many moments when I was like, had to come to Jesus with each other and be like, we have to both work at this together to make this work and flow because this is what we got. And so I look for the little things that make me happy in the tiniest ways, which I now have also learned to appreciate even more, whether it's a cute mug or the butterflies in the garden or writing. I write a lot. Creating things. I've noticed that the times when I lose my own plot in terms of doing something that feels purposeful are super detrimental for me. Like I just go downhill real quick. So I've learned more and more to kind of like know that and go, okay, what can I there's something here that I can do that will, give me that inner sense of self, of my own entity outside of caring, 24/7. And a lot of that has been in the realm of ALS because that's what we're living. And I feel, the communicating about it, whether it's for people that don't know about the disease or, I mean, I can't tell you how many messages we posted a lot in May because it was ALS Awareness Month, and how many messages I've received from other women caregivers, even women with ALS, and just saying like, this is so valuable because not everybody's going to have the desire to show their life or tell their story, but it is important for them for others to see them and what happens.
Yeah, I mean, sharing is the foundation of community. So
yes, and again, it's been just so that the purpose moments, I would probably say,
What's the one life lesson you want people to take from hearing your story?
oh my goodness, life is precious and la la la. You're the center of your story, and the things that happen to us and the hardships that happen to us. I don't like that whole like, oh, they're here to mold you and grow you. It's true. But the fact is that the harder it gets, the more you can really get to know yourself. And that if you lean into that, you'll find more strength and beauty and passion and meaning than in any of the other emptier things that comprise life. All those other things are like frosting on the cake. They're fun, they're good to have. But if you have lived a challenge, to find the nuggets in that story and in how that's really helped you crack open into new ways of being, and have the courage to explore those new ways that, that you don't have to stay in the same boxes as before.
Yeah.
I think that's, and that's what we're here to do, is to keep evolving and trying. And if you've had the privilege of going through something really difficult like this, to know that you're positioned to probably experience life and love in a deeper way than others may have the chance to.
I love that.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you, guys. Till next time.